Okay, I've been asked by several people to deliver the lecture in Spanish because there are people on an Erasmus program, people coming from several countries that don't understand Catalan, or maybe they have some trouble. And as I said on day one, I'm not going to, well, oppose this. I don't have any problem whatsoever. And then again, since this is being recorded, the presentation will be uploaded, or maybe not in full, but partially. We'll see. We'll see how we go about that. So today's class is number 3 in this group of 5. And I think it's very much linked to the work that you will have to do during this course, to the exercise, a bit more than one. There are other lectures like number 5. Well, it's not just because of its role, but it's a class devoted exclusively to building a project, or the next one, which is about instrumentation in geometry. Maybe I feel more comfortable doing that. But anyway, I'm saying so because today I'm not 100% comfortable doing this because, well, it's taken many hours for me to prepare for this class. I mean, I do spend many hours preparing all my lectures, but in this case even more so, because we in our studio, even if there are architects working with us that do, housing, and they're experts, Xavi Martin, for instance. And I was studying here in this very same room when he was studying too. He was an excellent student. He proved to be very knowledgeable as to housing. Extraordinary. But as I say, maybe I will feel more comfortable, more at ease in other lectures that have more to do with the city, like the previous one or the next one. Even in the field of construction, I will feel at ease. But still, we will talk today about housing, just simply as applied to its urban settling. But we will analyze it from a point of view that I would say is the main one in the case of housing, which is the typology and the lighting. There was a third aspect that maybe will appear in a subliminal way in what we see today, and it is a component where innovation also has a role to play in the field of housing and residencies, and I'm referring now to technology. So construction, building, sustainability that is required today. But I would like to restrict my presentation, focusing on your exercise. So I will focus on type or typology and aggregation. We know that a city is made up of residential buildings. 80% of it is. And it's clear the basis behind the city is housing, the housing component. So the first thing that I did, of course, in our libraries, we all have, abundant information on dwellings, on housing. We've visited many buildings. We've taken on trips that are so important, and I have come to realize with time that it's very right to innovate and see what goes on in the residential aspect, like with these huge spaces, some places in the United States, residences as the vernacular topic in more kind of exotic countries acquires greater importance. But all these models seem to be so far away. What happens to me is that it's hard for me to speak or try to teach about topics that I don't master, that I don't know in depth. So that's why you see here in the classroom that apart from a historical vision and a more global background of the architectural phenomenon, architectural fact, I always end showing you, well, my own examples that come out of my studio that are very close to me, because I believe it's easier then to understand what has gone on and what's behind those projects. And it's not just about speaking superficially, because I've heard so many lectures on Le Corbusier in my life, and I've not been interested in all of them. I'd rather, go and visit Le Petit Cabanon, La Ville Savoie, La Tourette, Ronchamp, l'unité d'habitation in Marseille, because I think it's much better than an explanation. Now, what I think is very important for you is the fact that there is certain proximity with the examples by the masters, both in figurative terms and in cultural terms, because it's easier to digest the content, much easier to understand. As I said before, I love Mies van der Rohe and Alvar Aalto and Mr. Coder, Barbacosini, Mr. Michans. They were very close to us and worked on geographic, climatic, cultural, nearby areas, and that proximity makes the model become more understandable, more present and more intense. So what I've done is I thought of talking to you about typology and aggregation, so I thought about proximity and I thought of the city of Barcelona, and I thought of going back to those years when a very important body of material arose in housing and residence. I'm referring to the 1960s, 1970s. There are some examples like La Barceloneta, 1954, but still, I wanted to limit myself, and I've been biased, I know. I have chosen 12 places that are taken from a collection from an information gathering by Professor Joan Pere Ravellar that he made based on interesting or buildings of interest in Catalonia. And I think that that's a book, a title that's been, it's not published anymore, but I'm sure you can find it, you can have access to it. So I've selected 12. I've chosen a duplex building or dwellings with a corridor in between. There were many that just didn't correspond to our environment, and I have decided to refer to plants and types that, well, are produced in a specific urban condition and which at the same time represent a breakthrough, an innovation vis-a-vis the traditional historic times that we used to be familiar with. So this selection, this choice of examples goes, chronologically from 1950, 58 to 81, more or less. I think for me that's the most powerful and more interesting projects that have been conducted in the city of Barcelona in relation to this matter. So let's start with the Pallars Street. You see here, it's in the Barcelona Ensanche urban development, 1959, taking, great part of a block and two corners. It was a work, it's a very initial work by the Boigas team. Martorell, Mackay was not with them yet. They developed this kind of housing concept, very urban indeed, very attentive to the city, to the ensanche with their two corners and the whole block. A very intelligent way in which they turn around the corner, the typology. They hide the facade with these small folds that give it certain vibration, but still remaining flat enough. Unity, the way they fine tune it, this critical generalism that we will see in terms of Kenneth Frampton, the realism stage, if you wish. Barcelona back then was starting to create. It's cool. It's stream of thought, and obviously, in the rest of Spain, Madrid, they were doing extraordinary housing, fruit of a different class of concept. But here, well, those were not that close to us. So in this case, proximity to all the authors of these 12 projects has just come natural. And we are, of course, knowledgeable of these projects. As you see in these plans, it's 4 stories, 4 flats per story. So this is the organization with the kitchen and the dining room with the patio, and the entrance providing some shade to the facade, the lateral terraces. It's equal in the anterior posterior facade, so it's providing it the same importance to the whole block and the street. There are no balconies. We will talk about that. Let me anticipate some things, and it's my personal contribution here. And it's the fact that the cantilevers must be justified to, for them to be happening in the city, because in Barcelona there was this terrible rule and regulation forbidden cantilevers. So we have had some terrible examples. So yes, you can do small cantilevers, 30-40 centimeters maybe, to free up those small balconies, but in the end it's about, well, being flat, remaining flat, respecting the city and the facade. That's really very important. Now, second project. When I am asked to mention 3 buildings in Barcelona, I usually mention this one in the Compositor back street, Composer back. I've visited it with William Curtis, and he's in love with the building. One of the greatest works by Jose Antonio Coderch, maybe not the most known one. There's others like La Barceloneta, Casa Ugalde, but this is a splendid work in all respects, I think. The distribution, placing this entrance, this lift that gives access to the 4 dwellings, the way the lift is placed in the center, how it is articulated with the corners and the bedrooms, and what you manage to get with this central service area with the service entrance. It's a fact of building, and we will see that in most of the projects that I chose. It's this space that is not a corridor but a distributor. So it leads to wonderful family life situations because there's privacy in a certain point and it's opening up to other parts. So it's a great facade with this perimetral, concrete bands or beams, very thin ones as a basis for the guides of the sliding shutters. And in this third section, we could mention also technology and construction, because Coderch worked with Jambi, shutter blind manufacturers, and they would manufacture blinds and shutters. So it was an excellent example of the collaboration between the architecture and the industry back in the 1960s. So this shutter allowed proximity with the street, privacy at the same time, with this climatic cushion or mattress as a filter. So there's this other contribution which makes it more sustainable. There's the central grand patio with cross ventilation, the different thermal pressures between the facades. So Coderc, and that was, remember, in 1971. He had been granted an award by the Triennale in Milan, and he had done the Barceloneta in 1954, a work that had a great repercussion at the European scale, at least. And then, I mean that he was a famous architect already, and that house in Barcelona is crucial, and I believe you all should know it. The two exercises are in Barcelona, so you could go and see them. And if you're lucky enough, you can just ring a bell or find a nice doorman that will let you see some of it. So I encourage you to do that. Then, third project, Mombau. Mombau was an area for immigrants at the moment in time where there was industrial explosion, the boom of industry in Catalonia. So quick dwellings had to be built, and that is the case of Mombau. At a certain point in time, it's an example. Even in the choice of architects and urban development that was created, it was an attempt to create public space and not just, blocks, like no matter how. I brought two examples in this slide, Block 58 and a tower in 61. We see the style of a team of excellent architects, all of them, I would say, linked very much in relation with the administration, and politically speaking, this has a meaning. Remember, these are the 60s in Spain. And here we have Soteras, municipal architect at that time, with the necessary conditions, then Baldric, then Lopez, Inigo, Giraldes, etc. And the outcome is splendid. You see this block here, dwellings with duplex, very well organized, with a generous middle corridor, 7.5 meters, so you don't have huge build depth, or you can place the pieces, but it was separate enough in the facade, so the corridor gives access to the entrance and the kitchen service, and when there is no incidence of the corridor, the facades of the bedrooms may be, I don't know, more free. In 1961, in contraposition to these blocks, 3 towers were built, more or less with the same team of architects, Subias also, and all these proposals came from Berlin, from Europe. These hygienic proposals, very much linked with the modern movement. But see the tower, the two stories behind, like in a poor placement. That's where the lateral sitting rooms are. The other stories have a terrace in front and are facing south, where the rest, to prevent these rooms from being, facing north. They're the bedrooms and the terraces of the sitting rooms then are moved to the front, and they're facing east west, so they have sun either in the morning or in the evening. So it's subtle, in an area like this one, and that would have never been done. It's been dealt with rigor and extreme care. So it's a modern movement. We need to mention it. It's flat facades, block scheme, etc. Another project here, I think it's indispensable for you to know it well to understand what the housing meant, not just in Barcelona, in the world. I'm referring to architect Francesc Mitjans, maintaining the parameters and the modern movement indications. He has known how to reinterpret them and make them sweet and smooth and adapt them to the dwellings and family life without just imposing the modern movement tough proposals. So Mijans, for all the faculty members here in this school, we agree that he has been one of our masters and very close one to Mijans, has built many houses in Barcelona. I recommend you visit some of them, like in Via Augusta, in the Diagonal, Pedralbes, and some are, top notch, really. And I consider him to be one of the most significant architects. Very interesting contributions. So all of them are very, very sophisticated projects. I brought here one of the most significant ones. Here's the depth of the block, and there's this plain terrace, even if it's all in cantilever, but he manages to do so thanks to the terraces. And he works in depth, and he prepares this posterior facade, which is more homemade, with this difference being created on the patios and the entrance, allowing ventilation of the pieces of the rooms, and with this central core that's ventilated to then enter in the middle of the two large dwellings. So it's very important, the placing of the lift, the two access doors to the dwelling, kitchen, office kitchen, the bedrooms area, the distributor, the potential union of the main bedroom with the sitting room, with the sliding separation. So it's an absolutely pleasant, nice area to be, but especially it's the urban presence of this building. It's magnificent, and that is a breakthrough, and it's a step forward vis-a-vis the modern movement proposal. So Mijans is one of the figures that you need to be familiar with. Then comes another architect that maybe is not as well known. That's very close to Mitre. It's a very small building. Terribly sorry, but what you're saying, sir, doesn't match what's on the screen. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. You're right, it's the Escorial project. Escorial. It's another project of innovation and research, because it's the same as in the case of Mombau, but in this case, the architects were closely related to architectural culture: Rivas de Piera, Oriol Boigas, Martorell, Pep Alemany, Perpignan, younger architects. They all would make an effort also in the Ensanche area, and rather than focusing on the blocks, per se, they focused on more open blocks, like the public space and the distance in between the blocks and the capacity of building in depth. So these things that had not been done so far in the Ensanche, with a depth of 25 meters even. So in the Escorial, I think that was an interesting alternative, carrying out a work. For instance, here there's a very interesting thing. This very small room next to the staircase, next to the kitchen, that could be a dining room or intermediate space, I don't know, studio, children's space. Anyway, there's the upper floor, canonical, traditional duplex solution this size. We could, I don't know, maybe sacrifice one bedroom or do three, or one larger or a sitting room, but still It's the bottom floor, with the terrace and the intermediate space next to the staircase, separated from the entrance, from the hall, because there's service entrance. So there are two doors, and all the services are covered. It's an excellent floor. And here's the formal definition with the two facades, etc. Now, yeah, that's the case of Mitre, Barba Corsini, and, well, Barba, I was with him also in this school, and I met me chance because the 12 examples have been professors here in this institution. Maybe some, maybe one was not, but I think all of them, or nearly all of them. And they were all masters. They were masters of a generation, the generation of the School of Barcelona. That is where we learned, not just here. As I said, first day, that was always shut down, on strike. But then, in the proximity of the studios, etc. Now, Barba Corsini, Mitre building. Barba Corsini had interesting projects, some quality, controversial ones like Binibeca, but remember that marvelous apartment in La Pedrera, fantastic modern reinterpretation of a gaudy apartment. And this is a funny building because it's about very tiny little dwellings with the central staircase and the central patio and the lift, and the flats are really, really small. But he would compensate that small size of the dwellings, and it was something very American back then. It was like a new contribution to the culture of Barcelona. He compensated that with many common services to the whole building, like laundry and I don't know, storage space. So you would have access to those services, like in the United States, common areas. Ancillary surfaces that would compensate the small dimension of the flat. But here's the beauty of this floor, of this plant, and the magnificent urban trace of the building. So I thought he deserved to be one of the chosen projects. Meridiana. I believe these are the two best works ever by Boigas and Martorell. I'm referring to Pallars and Meridiana. Do they have other nice works? Of course. There are many things to learn from their blogs and their concern in other projects. I know that, but I would say that these two pieces are absolutely indispensable. Not just for you to understand what went on back in the 60s and 70s and why then came, what came, etc., but in order to understand the historical record behind it. Oriol Boigas, I would say, is the most educated architect in this generation, and the most versatile one as to the way in which he approached other means, literature, publishing, politics, sociology, journalism, so culture in general. In this work, there's still certain trace of historical tradition. The building has a basement, a body, and a top, with this huge part on top with the arcades, magnificent, that approach the street, and the facade vibrates and it turns around the small windows. They shut to the noise of traffic. A street like Meridiana, and with a biased view on the street, which is much more interesting than the frontal view because of the urban street. It's interesting to see the functionality of the different plans. They're a little bit deeper. Architect enlarges the pieces and establishes an absolute hierarchy among them, the dining room and the kitchen, and then the bedrooms and the side wings with the flat window and the sitting room. So it's an absolute a hierarchy, because in the field of housing, size is important. Rafael Moneo said it. You need to measure things right. Mijans would said that when correcting uh, a student, because there was a 60-centimeter distance between the the locker and the bed. I mean, it's impossible, he used to say. So measure really matters, because some people needs to take their clothes out of the closet and gets dressed, and the guy will fall onto the bed. So the dimension is crucial in any architectural project. So pay attention to any centimeter. 282 or 283 is a difference. Well, maybe not as much, but 5 centimeters can really make a difference, and it can have a relevant incidence on the story, on the plant. So beware. Now, Via Augusta, Pera Llimona and Xavier Ruiz created this building, and if I had to, resort to my gut feeling, also be rational, but if I were to add my emotions and my feelings and my taste and formal preference, if I had to choose one of the projects they carried out, I would choose this one. Is it the best plant? No, but it's good. Central staircase with an access to the lifts, taking you to the 2 stories, and it's in the Via Augusta street. And then there is a lift that, grants you more direct entrance to each of them to the center of the house. So you can organize it in a very practical fashion, no corridor, or the different pieces moving from one room to another, going round the whole house, so it seems bigger, and you can alternate circulation and direction, and it's very well distributed. There's the night area and the day area and the service area, and we have at the center the dark areas, but some more illuminated rooms open up, so it's very sophisticated and it's impressive. Really, what impresses me is the formal treatment. Like, you have the skeleton, metallic, facing outward with this treatment, not perforated with the windows. No, it's extraordinary urban characteristic, and it's the solution of the attic, and the top without going back the 3 meters, 3 necessary meters that we find anywhere around the city. So apart from the proximity, Pera Llimona, it was a professor also with whom I studied when I began, and I traveled with him throughout the world, and I learned a lot from him. Very ironic man, great sense of humor, great architect. And he, in the beginning, started with a larger team: Llimona, Ruiz Vallès, La Guardia, Ballesteros, Cardenal. I think you should visit the Monés jewelry shop. It's Joyería Monés. It's very easy. It's not far, and you can go and see them. It's worth it.
Well, we're missing a master. And in this case, and in this house, it's the master of masters, because he taught architecture and projects and composition. And back then, he was in the first year with Federico Correa, who, together with Alfonso Millar, represented something very important. But also in this case, we have to render some tribute, because this architect, we have to pay tribute, because this architect, always accompanied by his many friends, but from a certain ideological loneliness, traveled to Italy, traveled around Europe, and I'm going to refer mostly to Italy. Bohigas and also Koderk, with other architects back then, traveled to Italy to bring architecture that we did not know here. Architecture of Candela, Salvini, the Magistretis, and others. So many architects of that splendid generation conveyed that Uriol and Federico, most of all, that conveyed like a bridge all that culture to Barcelona. Interestingly, that culture, which was inherited of the avant-garde, which were most powerful in Italy and in Spain, with different representatives, are conveyed to a second generation of Italian architects, which are magnificent. And back then, Italy prevails in the world of architecture, and Catalans go to learn in Italy. Interestingly, because of the influence of the different masters in Venice and other countries collapses, and we then inherited in Barcelona, and the historical continuity is preserved of this model. Federico Correa, in his best building, the Monitor building, which for me is the best one, look at the degree of sophistication of this drawing. We could spend a whole hour observing it, measuring it, understanding how you move through it. It's magnificent. It's splendid. It's also the Italian heritage of the brickwork. This the sophistication in the decrease of or the tapering of the chimney, the white prefab, the top of the superior loggia, the connection of the building with the ground, the extraordinary urbanity of it all, which is in a piece which is without a city. It's once again a top of the top. At the entrance, the service entrance, the lift, the central patio, circulation along the dwelling, these small pieces that are between one history and the other, segregating the dining room as a very important piece, but that is united in a determined in a certain point in time. Cocheras. In Cocheras, Kodak does an experiment. He uses the discoveries made in his houses, in his family houses, with the contribution of the vertical window. He explained that a vertical window provides the same light as a horizontal window of the same size, but in the same time occupies less facade. If we place a vertical window in a corner, then we have a large capacity to provide light, the possibility to open up to a terrace, an access terrace, to include a blind which goes out to a body that gathers the rail, and in turn it enables to optimize the plane of the facade. And very often this window appears in a corner, and a corner window is perfect because it doesn't leave any wall shadowy in a room. It lights the four walls. Kodak does great inventions, but it takes the floor plan, it groups dwellings in fours, and then lifts 7 or 8 floors. And he takes 4 and 4, and then he glues together 7 or 8. We're always talking about the different ways of access, and it's very important how it does that, this aggregation. In this case, we have an abnormality here. The main structure has concluded in the facade, and then you have to load the walls of the penthouse on the forged structure, which is not the ideal way to do it. In an extreme case, in Victoria, when that same floor plan of Cocheras is given a sheath, because they say it's in the Basque Country and rain is much more present there. But aside from that, these dwellings, these apartments are extraordinary, and they have been, in my opinion, one of the great teachings that many of us have copied in some way or another. Now it's called plagiarism. It used to be called tribute. Garcés, Soria, Pimolist. Pimolist is included in this selection because it's a double block solution with a central street where all the doors and entry doors and entries are grouped. So this flat nature of the facade and its urban character are very strict, and they confer a great unity to the whole set, to the whole. And what does this floor plan contribute on top of everything else? It places a connecting element, the bedrooms in the back, the living rooms in the front, bathrooms, kitchens, and you sew this together to other modules until you form a block and another block. The patio is sufficiently big to contemplate good orientation as well. It happens when patios are of this size, they start working as an interior street rather than a patio. There are streets in the city that don't have this size. It's enormously innovative. In 1981, it's the first flexible door plan. There is a sliding door. That is, the hallway is not a hallway. When you want it to be a hallway, then you close the sliding door to the pillar, and then you organize the pillar, and you close the other sliding door, and you connect the living room with the dining room, with the kitchen, and with the family room. But then you have another separation from kitchen to dining room. So you have three flexible elements, something which we try to experiment today in new projects for small-sized apartments, thanks to the flexibility of a few mobile elements that can extremely change program and night program and day program, which also adapts to family life. The good thing is that it's very, very clear and not ornamented whatsoever. I finish with this one. This is a panoply like the one presented that Luis Nadal wouldn't be complete. Nadal is maybe our architect most closely related to dwelling, to housing. He always says that his master was Duran and Reynals. Look, he's always referring to his own master. Nadal evolves continuously, and he continues evolving today. He has a very classic, a very modern, at the same time very classic approach. He always evolves. He has evolved until today. He always he places the bedrooms well. The bathroom is extraordinarily strict. It separates the closet to provide more flexibility. He places great attention to storage. Look at the closets. Look at the central closets in the house. But what is really extraordinary in his floor plan is this other central space where he organizes with great flexibility a communication between different spaces. This third bedroom that reaches the facade, it could be an office, it could be a joker in the house. But look at the kitchen too. In an L shape, it turns around. It's wonderful, but at the same time, it reaches the patio to where you hang the clothes, with a washing room where you can iron the clothes, and it's communicated on the back with the bedroom area, which is so you separate the clothes from the kitchen, as Coderc always said, because the clothes cannot be next to the kitchen because of the smell. But look at the apartment blocks here in Rio de Janeiro. When in a place where there's no city, it's an inexpressive place of the city. So he forces the shape of the blocks in order to achieve a certain urban nature. Look how he turns the dwellings around, the apartments around. Look how he makes them visually bigger, with bigger facades. He is a great master. Luis Nadal is a great master. In Zaragoza Street, in Balmes, he's wonderful. He can teach you a great deal. I'm going to tell you what I can convey to you from what I have learned from these people, so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made, or maybe you can do something great as well with what I have learned and the mistakes that I have made. Because after all, an architect needs to gather more and more instruments throughout his learning process. This is an area in Saint-Just-des-Bains, also projected in years 1972 and 1973, so it's contemporary to Cocheras. As you will see, you see those blocks. The only thing they do is they learn from Coderc, copy from Coderc. Well, let's not deceive ourselves. They copy his floor plan in his bedrooms, optimizing a facade that already had to have 4 bedrooms without a patio, because it was on the mountain. What I do, instead of superposing the apartments one on top of the other, I slide them over the topography of the mountain, placing them as a staircase which better adapts to the terrain, and at the same time that enables me to create some typological variations and to adapt to the conditions of the pied-à-terre, of the other floors, of the duplex, penthouse. That is, it enriches the typological panoply with small variations. This is the entrance to those buildings, with this patio against the containment wall. There are always containment walls, and when we get to the mountain, and up here to the left, you see this distribution, this fan distribution, which he really represents in one of the most beautiful buildings by Coderc, the Girasol building in Madrid. It's worthwhile having a look at. Our floor plan in Saint-Just is a simpler kind of floor plan with a patio that runs towards the back and that steps it up. The chimneys and ventilation ducts are also in steps, and then there is a solution of several bedrooms, ones with a device to hang up clothes, and that can be open to the entrance hall. And then afterwards, look at this floor plan, where the brickwork is not structural, but it's a pillar structure, but allows to connect two apartments in a more complex floor plan, which is what Lucia has done, amongst others. We are talking about this building with flower pots and so on. It's my first building, and today I look at it with certain kind of affection, because over time, timber, the normal brickwork, the chimneys and so on have prevailed. And they're not outmoded either, because they didn't used to be fashionable back then. But I do look at it with a certain naivete, particularly in the translation of almost literal model. I like it better on pictures with a lens taken from afar. All these buildings are very separated by forest areas and by topography, but you can bring it all together with a lens. When I already had built it, I traveled to Finland. And in Finland, I discovered the history of Tapiola Garden. In Tapiola Garden, I discovered that the Finns don't like the semi-detached. they don't like these kinds of houses, but they group small constructions of 3 or 4 dwellings, that is, for example, pied-à-terre and 2 more floors, and those small buildings are placed in the forest, in gardens, in garden cities, particularly by the lake, and I love that culturally. As a result of that, you can see here a section of Tapiola Garden and what I developed some years later next to the project that you have already seen, being developer with some friends, and we built ourselves this house, this construction. Look at the section of San Just Park. In the front, the plans, that is, the front with the terraces are higher and have a bare concrete structure. And in the back, those are the bedrooms which are lower. So there is a difference in level between the front and the back. Downstairs you have 4 or 5 steps, in the middle 2 or 3, and then the roof is already there. So the sum of the different heights is the same as the slope. This mechanism then enables us, as in Tapiola, to go out to a terrace, which is a certain prolongation of the upper floor. This floor plan are pillars every 3.15 meters, and this is unmovable. The staircase, which is also brickwork, is self-holding. And careful with the lift, because then you have a floor plan that where you can place all 3 bedrooms on the back on the forest, and the master bedroom then connects with the library, then with the living room, then with the dining room, the kitchen, and then the kitchen, you got the kitchen, and the clothes, the laundry is behind the lift. And then you have small cuts in the pillars where you can start visualizing the whole, with the use removing the central part when they want not so many people at home. Then you can create a living room with added pieces and enjoy the whole of the apartment. That would be the vision. In the back, you have the dining room. Then in the back, it's projected. The sunlight goes in without any problem. This is the area of the library and the living room. This is a building with a telelens. And now I'm going to talk about type and aggregation. I'm going to show you 2 examples of how they are so important. One is this building, the building built some years later, the Garbi building. I was commissioned this in the seaside in the port of Estartit. William Curtis liked it because it said that the local developer had created a building which is certainly sophisticated. And I liked it because it tenses a degree in the center, and the cantilevers recede, and a building that have several visual and formal perversions, like the corners that turn around and they are lighter on top and so on. The invention here is that below the ground floor, which looks out to the sea, it has 3.5 floors, almost 4, and you can enter them through this hallway, through this corridor. You go to upper level, then you go to the different floors. So the street on the port level is here, and the street on the back is that. So going up from this point to the dining room, with very few steps, you are on the other part of the building. From the other extreme, you are at the level of the promenade. You have to go up that staircase in order to arrive to the corridor, and then you have an entrance and an exit to those two levels. And the corridor articulates these four staircases, two that go up and two together that go down, and the other two that go grouped down, and then you can enter the other two directly from the street. Look, and the floors adapt to the geometry of the plot, to the back street, which is a small village street, and the frontality of the facade, but always achieving this story. And the corridor really becomes wider with these three staircases that go up and down and allow the entrance of sunlight from the two extremes. It's a small building. This is the front facade towards the sea, with the gradients, the inclined planes that improve the view, and the back street that closes in a much more urban facade, an urban facade of a small village street. The second example has to do, it's a more urban case. It's a small building, also, it was also a developing. And I brought this document because this is a military paper sheet, and the whole project is drawn in pen. I wanted to show you this sheet of paper where the whole project is drawn in pen, in ball pen. You can see here the section, the different floors. Well, I'm not going to recommend this kind of paper because you're going to send me to hell. But if somebody dares, it's fantastic because you can pay attention to the last millimeter. And what we were saying before about measurement, it's intrinsic to the support where you draw on. This building looks on one hand, this handicraft, the School of Barcelona, but on the other hand, it's more like the duplex of modern movement, and you can see here the different floors. You take advantage of the parking spaces directly from the street. You have some local establishments in the back that become small duplex studio. You have the Dolmens area with a small lift. You come in through the street. From the street, you enter this little atrium. You have this small lift here that goes up to the upper floors. These are the utilities, water, gas, and so on. And these four studios with the staircase. The kitchenette is below the staircase. And up there you can have the bedroom in double height, hanging on double height on the living room. You go up this staircase to the patio, from the entrance to the patio, and that really, as you can see, really ventilates the four duplex studios. And in this back patio, we can receive the sunlight through these skylights. This is the back patio, the lift, the area to hang the laundry, the entrance, the bedrooms, and the chimneys, and so on. Then we have a backyard. This is a picture from last week. As you can see, these are very independent looking photos from last week. Another example, and when we talk about urban landscape, the 3 blocks in Cerdàs Eixample. They're prefab, concrete, the staircases are prefab, and inside there are some gardens, some yards. This is actually a jungle, but look at this. In the ground floor, what we have is certain permeability. The larger establishments are in the corners, the other ones are smaller. There's only one passage which is protected from these ramps. Then you have corridors, the circulations in diagonal that happen through these open establishments in a way that makes this island more permeable. Montaner always says that the urbanity of the whole in ground floors has been very successful. These small neighborhood stores, this is what we call neighborhood establishments, are going to really provide life to the neighborhood and to the whole. The fact that they are small, that the inner part of the aisle is transparent to the street, the fact that they have porch, and also the dormant areas, children can go directly from the entrance to the backyards without going through the streets, and they can be supervised by their parents in this closed-in patio. The core is very important. I was talking to Oriol Bohigas one day about a tower in Barcelona, and I said, wow, 40 floors of dwellings. What about children? Children cannot go up the lift when they're alone until they are 16. And if they have to go just buy a little something, a little nothing, well, it is going to be an enormous trip for a child. So be careful with those things. What about dwellings? You have a pillar of 510, 515, which is the parking structure, because the parking house is in this protection band of the ground floor with 16 meters, and this structure of 515, 520 enables you to do a typology of 5 with 2 bedrooms, typology of 7.5, 2 of 7.5, 15 with 3 bedrooms, typology of 10, with 13, 40, because there's the staircase, there's a terrace, there are lifts, there are common areas, there are clothes hangers, they're going to be 100 square meter apartments. You have the 3 typologies that you can alternate as you wish. This is what enabled the developer to ask some more until we build, changing the typologies, more than 3, then less than 2, then some of 4. And this typology in the last 2 floors, which is duplex, it's a 2-floor structure, so that the height of the building is at the height of the corniche, because they recover the terrace, because those duplex apartments have terraces in the higher part. The duplex is 515, because in order to have a bedroom upstairs and the corridor is lower in height, that you do it 220, 225, then you can have above the corridor windows that look towards the kitchen. This is the corner, and this is a fan of small studies in the corners. Look at this typology. This up down here, in this case, they're exactly the same. 10 meters by 13. And here, the staircase and the lift in this group are prefab, and it's always the same for all apartments, 2, 3, and 4. You enter you go into direct into the center, but you can create a passage area with a dining room, with a kitchen when you go in, with a terrace within the island, with the gardens and the urban environment. In the same solution of the 4 bedrooms with this curve that enables you to go in and out of this living dining room towards the night area with the bedrooms that are in the back. So it's the same kind of typology, but a different distribution of a passage room or not. I think that at the end, the developer said, look, people are very conventional, so 60% should be 4 bedrooms in the back and 40% distributed in front and back. And they all sold well. And we have 3 duplex here, 7.5, 15, that is 3 duplex, and we have 10 of 4 bedrooms, and we have 2-floor apartments, also a dwelling of 5 with 2 bedrooms in the back. So look at this typology, this aggregation, this duplex system, how it enables you to go down, the relation with the roof.
In this other one, maybe it's a different viewpoint, but here we have an advantage, versatility, because pay attention to the geography. I was discussing this the other day with you, the Tunnel of La Rovira, the existing blocks, the amount of information provided by this document when one needs to start working on the project. I mean, please work with as much information as you can. If you have a detailed plan, it's much better. You know, when you start with first sketches on the topography and the streets and the heights and the neighboring buildings and the heights of the streets, because you know, as much information as possible will be very, very valuable for you. Take a look at the section, the double block with the commercial streets and the streets with the patio and the staircases, this corridor in between the dwellings, you know, protecting the facade, and the deepest block providing, you know, an inside space, and the towers, and the bottom for the commercial shops. And then look at the topography, how it, you know, crosses to then project the public space. And then there's the step-up building. It steps up or down depending on the topography, generating this beautiful attics. And the topology of the double block that I wanted to show you. That's what I really wanted to show you here. There is a long floor plan. Take a look at the organization, and another deeper one to the inside. And now there's something that I'm sure you will find more and more often. We're faced with projects whereby we need to start with the figure of the planning, to do the city, to build a city. I'm not talking about general plans, but small urban figures that enable the architect to build what will be an architectural model, you know, previously based on those general urban rules and regulations. You know, that is what the model will be. And that is the case. Look, the territory as it was, that's the block here. Then it's become the Foch law. There was some parking lots there, a catastrophe. That's Pedralbes district, and that's Sarria, cohesion, town-like district, and then come the Ramblas. And then I asked Solans, the urban planner back then, the possibility that I could do some small blocks, because otherwise it was awful. So I wanted him to let me organize all this, and he was smart enough, so he said yes. So we organized this piece. It's narrow at the edges, it's wide in the center with this kind of mirror-like area and the green space here and the Foch square, that's where Sarria takes its name from, and it's an important front vis-a-vis the blocks in Pedralbes, the continuum. You see the narrow edges, and you can create some sort of garden-like street that you can see from the Foch Square to this garden area to respond to a small block of small flats and houses. From shorter to higher ones. It's a step-up plan here. There's even 4 stories, so it's easy to integrate, and it's like the end of the Sarria streets as a way to close that response to the block more in line with the new city. And I show you this picture because I think it's fantastic. Sarria and the city and the building trying to act as a hinge, in this situation with this garden-like interior street. Then the Avenida Diagonal and the waterfront. Since we had won the competition that we've done from architecture, and sometimes you can do an urban model overlooking the sea and sunny gardens and square towers. If the architecture doesn't go with the urban model, sometimes the architect doesn't have the power to do what he wants to do. Anyway, that's the Cerdà block, and the prize came when we won this competition is this block here. We wanted to locate people coming from the barracks to go live in this area of the Forum, Diagonal Mar in Barcelona, because we had to, relocate those poor people that were living there. They were living under terrible conditions, so they deserved proper dwelling and hygienic conditions. And the promoter, the developers, the establishment, etc. These people were kind of a pain in the neck for them. So I show you here 2 cases of these relocations, one in Barcelona and one in Madrid. So these are dwellings where to relocate these people coming with very specific problems and from very specific situations. What is it with it? Some people just refused living in apartments. They were gypsies, and they didn't even want to hear about that. There were young people asking for a more modern kind of dwelling, and other people preferred a classic house. And among all of them, they had, I don't know exactly how that happened. I don't know exactly how many meters each family was attributed based on the number of people in the family. I don't know, 2, 3, 4 bedroom houses, very small. So it had to be very cheap, of course. And the budget was, funny, to put it this way. Next to the block, it was 29,000 pesetas the square meter, every square meter. And back then, the sale price was 350, 400,000 pesetas, just like, opposite the street. So, and I would say that these blocks had some finishings that were even better than those in front. Anyway, we placed those patios, 4 patios, giving into this area behind, like a fantastic open garden island, so you could access those small dwellings there with a direct entrance, the ones you see here. You would enter here, and then these 16 dwellings were allocated to those people that didn't want to have a lift or elevator or staircase and all the rest. So the body of the building, 4 stories, would hold dwellings of 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. There are different typologies. and that's what we did. And of course there were the commercial spaces at the bottom. So we would place 3 dwellings per floor because of the depth of the block, just like the case in Michans, in Avenida Sarriá. We could open up the blocks and take some sun and turn the house. So these are the 3 passing dwellings through the patio here and here through the patio and the facade. So since we turned them a little, they have sunlight. So all the dwellings were quite good. They were good enough. And then finally the 2 last ones here. Here is a street that well appears here, and it provides them with this typology, duplex like, and then they separate the blocks. They go by the staircase which provide ventilation. So the young people stayed in these dwellings with an upper street and an attic, funnier in a sense. So in just a single block, we could concentrate all the different typologies, the different choices, the different aggregation forms. Direct entrance through the patio, staircase open to the outside, in the facade. You can see the different distances, the different bedrooms, depending on whether the dwellings had 2 or 3 or 4 bedrooms, and how the plans were devised for the 2-story flats on top and the commercial shops at the bottom. So this block, I did it with Alberto Salas, who unfortunately died. So I feel a great deal of affection for that project. And a series of architects came from Madrid one day to visit the forum in Barcelona, and they asked me whether I could join them to have a look around, and I did. I accepted, and I was showing them everything that was being done in the forum area, and 1 or 2 of them said, "Hey, that white block there, what is it?" And I answered, "Well, this is something that we did, very easy, blah." And no, they wanted to see it. They wanted to see it, and we went in, and there was some parties, gypsy parties, fantastic, with all the kids around. There was a communion celebration, if I'm not mistaken, and everything was decorated. The 4 patios looked fantastic. So the block was working. It was kind of proper, and they felt enthusiastic about it, maybe because of the friendship, but then they were not interested in anything else, and then we went for lunch, because that's all they really to see, really. So that was the dwelling in Madrid, in the south of the city. That's where it's located. Terrible place. This kid here, well, the kid is holding a bird, a sparrow in his hand, or I don't know exactly. They asked me to remove the kid from the picture. I will have to do it someday. Anyway, there was the National Prize of Spanish Architecture, and I was commissioned this project, because whenever you're given the prize, you're commissioned something. But funnily enough, those are the kinds of projects that I most appreciate, You really need to work with all your love and affection and all your efforts. I remember with Gallardón, he distributed the keys, and I was with him, and I was with the indwellers. It looked like an Almodovar film. Incredible. He delivered this speech about what it meant for those people to live there, coming from the huts and barracks and shacks, and he was delivering this presentation, what it meant for these people to be able to live such a change, having a proper dwelling and becoming a proper citizen. And the effort there was to open up some community space, not public, but community space, open space in this area to create the block here in order to make the most of the volume, because we had the regulation, of course, that we had to abide by, and the heights were quite low. So in these dwellings, in the first floor, because at the bottom there were 4 dwellings, and you would access them all through the patio. So there's one single lift. There's only one single elevator for all of them, so you have access to this platform. I believe this block was 2-story high, but still you get access to this platform as if it were a balcony, and from there everything is distributed at the height of the tower. And here you would pass through the elevator to access the different flats. Well, there's more to it, but anyway, let's go to the ensanche. I'm coming to an end now. Back to Barcelona, there are 2 refurbishment outlines. Here you make the most of the whole building, all the parking components and the facade. And in the other case, it's the other way around. You keep the facade and change the interior. Here's a type of flat that Lucia did, and it's been successful. You would enter here, and there is the kitchen with a sliding door that you can shut or shut, the whole, and then there's the dining room, and here there's a sliding door that's a second bedroom but could be a library, and then another sliding door, giving access to the main bedroom, and then the bathroom. So behind it's shorter, and that's a solution. It's a single bedroom, and that's the kitchen, and that's the bathroom. Here's a very small toilet, also the second bedroom. So it's kind of a good solution, good enough. We have the facade with translucent stone, so light is let in everywhere, so that was implicit in all the details, all the construction details. And finally, the scene, the Femina 99 Cinema Theater, we would keep the facade, but not just the facade, all of the corridor of Paseo de Gracia. I preferred to leave that facade, even if the town hall, the city hall, was granting permission to demolish it because the house was not catalogued. But I thought of the environmental value of the house and Paseo de Gracia, not maybe its architectural value, but I thought it was worthwhile keeping it. In the case of Moragas, it had been burned on a fire, so to rebuild it. So that's the image, the entrance, the staircase. Here, it's this part of Paseo de Gracia. This part would be kept. We would create a floor adjusting the depth because it's 20-meter wide, and I didn't want to, split the flats, apartments in Paseo de Gracia. I thought it was wrong, with balconies. And so what I did was, whole flats, whole apartments, 20-meter deep flats, and a running patio, a running internal patio with a very deep duplex or double scheme, like tube-shaped. There's a single corridor in one plan and not in the other one, and again, it's like playing the trick with the kitchen and the window on top of the corridor. So the corridor is very light, and it's made of crystal, and well, in Holland, they do that quite a lot. So here we have 6 stories of different heights because the facade gives in 2 Paseo de Gracia, and here it's 8. But they're double, so those double flats empty the center with the staircase and the superior gallery, which is the library, and then Upstairs you would have the main bedroom and secondary bedrooms and bathroom, and then downstairs the kitchen and the living room and the central part, dining room, double height. So that provided a great deal of light. So these are two cases of refurbishment. I'm not going to tell you about the towers because it's getting late, but it would be interesting to take a look at this tower together with Xavier Martí, that we did together with Xavier Martí. It's a panoply, like a fan, with the central core, double staircase, mobile components, sometimes one, two bedrooms. It's an elegant tower, 300 meters plant, 100-meter height. And here in this project, all the common services of the tower were located at the bottom of the tower, so we created a public space belonging to the tower. It's the case of Venice. Two polygons are playing with each other, one on top of each other. So you have this facade with the shutter and the terraces, looking at the moon and the sea. And here we used very nice materials. Here's the Europa Square Tower, and that's the whole plot of land. There's a fixed plane you cannot move from, and then you have flexibility. The volume, the resulting volume, talks about dismantling this little interstitium. So Via Plana, well managed, I think, to organize these buildings. This one is next to the one that Nouvelle has just completed. It hasn't been built because of the recession. What we did with Xavier Martí was we decided to leave a fixed plane, and then the product will be the same as these, counting that volume from all the plants on that surface. So then the tower is turning, and when you elaborate a floor plan like this one and another one to the opposite side, you have the structure of the tower, and the rest is in cantilever, so that you get rid of unnecessary pillars. So here are the staircases. That's what happens. There are two staircases, one on the facade. It's a fixed side of it, so we cannot move that. The other one is maintained top down. Sometimes it's not necessary. The core is inside, and there is a crown grouping together all the kitchens and the bathrooms, and that's fixed for all the floors, for all the stories, because here there's water and there's chimneys and ventilation installations, the elevator, the staircases. It's in the periphery and the perimeter. That's where life is. The living rooms and bedrooms only. When there's the terrace, you find the facade, because the structure is there, and all the rest is the central core. So this way one has reflexivity without affecting anything else, and the amount of typologies that appear, because from the commercial side they say no, we want more than one typology, because there's a family that wants a small bedroom or two small bedrooms because they have, I don't know, a grandparent living at home. So so many different preferences. And let me end by referring to the intermediate space, the search of the intermediate space. I think that's one of the things that we are asking you to do in this course and in this exercise also. Barceloneta, Codex Barceloneta, invented this story. It's this space that is inside, and it's outside also with the shutters, and it communicates the pieces through these double doors, outside just like in the inside, vice versa. So it's more sophisticated. Maybe we will never see anything like that. But we, together with Xavi and Lucia, we have witnessed this story. Those are small apartments, but flexible apartments with walls that can help us divide them, turn them into something more flexible, and make the public space in front of the staircase become a pleasant community space. So you have access to all the flats. Here happens. It happens in the floor plan. Those were the sketches. That's the building that you saw the other day. That's the inner space. From the entrance, the institute, concrete made staircase, then the corridor with lighting, one side and the other, the service staircase, and then furniture and more things, and the beautiful staircase, of course, giving into the facade and the light on the corridor. The doors were changed to that height, and the rest has indirect lighting with its own geometry, etc. And then outside we have these facades. I was saying the other day that that was an example of urban landscape, and that is a final picture that arrived only the past weekend. Something similar happens in Lesseps with the structure of a passing floor and more staircases here, every other two. Then this corridor opens up. It's a central patio, helps ventilate the bedrooms. It's cross ventilation, urban facades. It's like a two-headed building. This one continues along the whole block, and this other doesn't. That's the Jaume Fuster de Llinars library, small corridor allowing access and entrance to the parking spaces, and then the block well gives into the street. This facade is much more straight, and this other one is more open. It opens up a little bit more. This is the central corridor, and here you see the intermediate space, the incursion into the pieces and the kitchens and the pieces in these buildings. You know, climatically speaking, it's a nice place. It's private, and in the sliding doors you have a great deal of glass, but it's very well protected at the same time with these mobile sliding doors that are cheap enough. Some are fixed, but others could be mobile. Most of them are fixed, though. Third, final building with use of this tactic or strategy are these dwellings in the Euskadi Square in Bilbao. That's where the Guggenheim Museum is. We worked there at the Deusto Bridge together with Xavi, Lucia. With this building, apart from the porch and those shutters that well, are very useful with their weather there. Again, it's the same story with the shutters, and we pushed the limits, you know, by working on cutouts and folds as of a certain height. So with these cuts, with the folds, etc., we could provide the building with some privacy. You know, we adjusted typologies, but we also, you know, granted privacy. And of course, we maintained a flat structure in the urban facade. Those are the spaces, the facades, etc. And that's my final picture. That's the floor plan that I wanted to show. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Let me just say, I guess you know what that is. If you don't know what that is, go to the doctor. Maybe the other option would have been better. No. That's my choice. But take a look at the sophistication of this floor plan. It's the best. I mean, you wouldn't find anywhere in the world a dwelling that I like so much as this one. This is the second one, right? It's the second one. I could have shown the first one, but I prefer this one. I've been in this one, you know, I've been there and I've seen it. So it's the original one, you know, with all the details, absolutely all the details. See how splendid this story is? See the circulation, that small piece, the placing of the bathrooms and the bedrooms and shut in here, and the access and the central patio access, one lift, one elevator here, and the other one is probably the service one, central patio. Anyway, you all know what that is. Well, in the next lecture, I'll see you. You'll work in groups now, and we'll meet together next Monday. Thank you.